The summer of 2002 saw a brutal, near-fatal assault in the swampy fringes of South Florida that was initially dismissed by police as a routine, if grisly, case of street violence. The victim, a young woman known in the media only by the pseudonym Jane Doe, was found barely alive, savagely beaten, and left for dead in a remote area near the Everglades. She was a woman with a difficult past, and her marginalized status in life allowed the police investigation to quickly stall, treating the case as cold before it was ever truly hot. This systemic failure was the starting point for one of the most remarkable and obsessive private investigations in recent history, driven by a man who refused to let an anonymous victim be silenced forever. Private Investigator Ken Brennan. Ken Brennan, a man defined by a relentless sense of moral duty, took the case pro bono when Jane Doe's mother pleaded for help. Brennan's background was not that of a former FBI agent, but a seasoned investigator whose success relied on old-school legwork and a profound understanding of human nature. He quickly recognized that the brutality of the attack, the meticulous nature of the beating, and the cold abandonment was too sophisticated for a random, impulsive crime. Brennan theorized that this was the work of a highly organized, habitual predator, someone whose victim selection and modus operandi suggested a long history of violence that crossed state lines. Brennan's investigation began by looking not at the victim, but at the crime scene's temporal signature. He spent countless hours piecing together the events of the assault, focusing on the sliver of evidence that police had discarded, the victim's vague memory of a truck and an unusual accent. He linked the Florida attack to a string of unsolved abductions and assaults across the country, crimes that shared a similar MO of targeting young, marginalized women and utilizing extreme, personalized violence before the victim was discarded, often in desolate areas. Brennan's breakthrough was realizing that the perpetrator's pattern wasn't geographical, but sociological, preying on those whom society wouldn't immediately miss. The meticulous work led Brennan to focus on a man named Paul Cox. Cox was a drifter, a transient worker with a history of minor arrests who moved frequently between states like Florida, Virginia, and North Carolina. What truly convinced Brennan was Cox's ownership of a specific model of truck that matched Jane Doe's hazy recollection, and the fact that Cox had been living and working in the exact geographic vicinity of the assault at the precise time the crime was committed. To the police, Cox was just another unremarkable laborer. To Brennan, he was a perfect match for the predator he had painstakingly profiled over months of solo investigation. The biggest obstacle was the complete lack of physical evidence linking Cox to the crime. The Florida police, viewing the case as too old and the suspect as too circumstantial, refused to pursue an arrest or even a thorough interrogation. This institutional indifference forced Brennan to abandon traditional police channels and pursue a radical, high-risk strategy. He decided to approach Cox directly, creating a chilling, unforgettable confrontation that tested the boundaries of private investigation and criminal psychology. Brennan initiated contact with Cox under a fabricated premise, pretending to be conducting an interview for an unrelated insurance claim, slowly building rapport and gaining Cox's confidence. During these meetings, Brennan subtly introduced details of the Jane Doe case, watching Cox's reactions closely. The confrontation culminated when Brennan, during a casual conversation, revealed his true purpose, subtly describing the assault and the victim's injuries with unnerving accuracy. Cox's reaction, a sudden pallor, a flicker of panic, and an immediate defensive refusal to speak further, provided the powerful, non-verbal confirmation Brennan needed. Although Brennan had secured a moral conviction, the Florida legal system still demanded irrefutable evidence. The case only moved forward when Brennan successfully used the Jane Doe case to interest Virginia cold case detectives, convincing them that Cox was also the man responsible for a brutal 1990 sexual assault in their state. The Virginia police had recovered crucial DNA from their 1990 crime scene, and Brennan's groundwork allowed them to obtain a DNA sample from Cox under a legal pretext, finally connecting him to the older but forensically complete Virginia assault. The DNA link was the definitive, non-negotiable proof. Cox's profile matched the DNA from the Virginia case, proving he was a long-term serial predator. This conviction in Virginia finally allowed the Florida authorities to re-examine the Jane Doe case with renewed urgency and confidence. Although the time lapse made securing a conviction for the Florida assault difficult, the evidence that Cox was a violent, habitual criminal was irrefutable, and the psychological victory of unmasking him was immense. The final chapter of this case is a testament to the power of single-minded advocacy. Paul Cox, faced with the overwhelming evidence compiled by Brennan and multiple state agencies, eventually pled guilty in the Virginia case, receiving 2 life sentences. While he never directly admitted the assault on Jane Doe in Florida, the pattern was clear. Jane Doe received justice not from the system that initially failed her, but from a private investigator who believed her trauma deserved the truth, regardless of the cost or the time required.